Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah.
In the name of Allah and blessing be upon Prophet Muhammad, welcome to the second day of the Center of Islamic Legislation and Ethics Conference, and welcome to the third session or theme, which is about psychology. We will talk in this session about religion, spirituality, and psychology from Islamic perspective. And just like other sessions, we have a keynote speaker, and then a discussion followed by a discussion, and then a break. After that, a panel. So our main keynote speaker is Mr. Malik Badri. He is Ibn Khaldun seat professor from International Islamic University in Malaysia. And he is a former psychology professor in Ahfad University in Sudan, and he is the head of the International Organization for Muslim Psychologists. And Malik Badri is well known of his writings in psychology and Islamic philosophy and spirituality from Islamic perspective. So we welcome Mr. Malik Badri, and he have half an hour, and until he approach the podium, I would like, on the name of the center, to thank the interpreters who interpret yesterday and today from to English and to French, who are Dr. Ashraf Abdel Fattah, Jawad Roman, Yunus Al-Yabi, Ali Matar, and Ala Al-Hiremi, Sarah Abu Shakra, Joyce Rayashi, and Samer Karoum. So we would like to thank the interpreters for their efforts, and now we invite Dr. Malik Badri to address you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of Allah, blessing be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his companions and household. And I would like in the beginning to thank the organizers of this conference, and I would like to say that maybe for the first time in all the conferences I attend, to sit from the beginning till the end and do not feel time passes by. So I attended many conferences about different themes. Many of the time they are boring and sometimes get tired. However, yesterday I spent the whole day in the conference without realizing time passes by. So I would like to thank my son Tariq Ramadan and his brothers and the unsung heroes. I will be speaking in English because my research or my paper originally in English. However, I might switch to Arabic from time to time. So Allah be support the interpreters.
Religion, spirituality, and psychology and Islamic perspective. In reality, it is a very difficult kind of topic because it is very difficult to define these three aspects. What is religion? When we hear the word religion, deen, all the time we think about people worshipping a deity, or even if they are pagan, worshipping their forefathers. There must be a spiritual direction to this. But in reality, religion is much more general than this. If you limit religion to the major faiths and to the worshipping of a deity, then it would be a naive form of thinking about religion. Religion is, as I think of it psychologically and also from the Islamic point of view, religion is it is a worldview. It is a worldview that by which a person, out of his own faith and belief, see the world in a particular manner. And from that, an ethical code will develop. Therefore, I think religion should be thought of as any system of beliefs, spiritual or otherwise, that gives the devoted followers a common worldview about the meaning of life itself and how people should deal with its ethical issues. In this connection, if we remember in the Quran, a short surah, يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم، وتنتهي السورة بالقول لكم دينكم ولي دين.
It ends with you have your faith and I have my faith.
Time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were pagans, there were a few Ahl Kitab, very few, but there were also atheists. This man, Arab, who came to the Prophet and took a bone of an animal which is almost breaking into pieces, very old. He blew into it and it went like flour in the air. Then he said to him, your God will bring this back to life? These were atheists, were agnostics. There were agnostics, there were people who worshipped idols, but Allah called it deen. لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. You have your religion and I have mine. So religion, in this sense, is a way of looking at the whole universe, looking at oneself. It contains answers to major questions. There is no society in the past, in the present, or the future that does not answer big questions. What is man? From where did man come from? Where is he going? From this universe, how did it come? Is it everlasting or will finish one day? These momentous questions, the answers to these questions will form the worldview of the society. And this worldview becomes like a religion to the society. And from this, the ethical code will develop. It is a worldview, and the worldview will eventually, when you change the worldview, you are going to change automatically the ethical point of view of the group. So religion, in this sense, fascism is a religion, extreme nationalism is a religion, and today, secular humanism of the West is a religion. Religion can be a religion of irreligiousness. So in this sense, we are actually talking about a very difficult concept. Spirituality. What is spirituality? الروح. It comes from الروحانية. ونفخ فيه من روح. Jibril in the Quran is called الروح. He is روح. The Quran itself is روح. أوحينا إليك أيها الآية بتقول روحا من أمرنا أليس كذلك؟ نعم. So this is the highest level of spirituality. But today I warn you against the use of spirituality in our modern world. Spirituality can become like transcendence, any form of feeling that takes the people outside, contemplators, people who go into, they call it spirituality. And also, I would say that at times spirituality becomes like a deviant kind of thinking. I'll give you an example. There is a great American psychiatrist by the name of Scott Peck, who wrote a book that made history. It was continued for 10 years in the best list of books and translated almost to most languages of the world. The book is titled The Road Less Traveled. This great psychiatrist speaks about spirituality. The book was popular because of his spiritual approach. But he thinks of spirituality in a particular manner. I just want to read to you this quotation from his book, from this book, where he mixes up spirituality with sex. I suspect that some of those in the profession of psychotherapy who cast stones at a therapist who has related sexually with a patient may not themselves be loving therapists and may not therefore have real understanding of the enormity of the pressures involved. Moreover, he's speaking about himself, moreover, were I ever to have a case in which I concluded after careful and judicious consideration that my patient's spiritual growth, that my patient's spirituality would be substantially furthered by our having sexual relations, I would proceed to have them. Now here, this is, I can call it what? Is it zina through spirituality, through zina? Fornication? What is it? So this spirituality again is something which we need to think. It's a complex thing. We'll have to know what we are talking about. The same thing can be said about psychology. If you ask a number of psychologists to define psychology, they may give you different definitions. Some people see psychology only through the tunnel vision of their school, like psychoanalysts. Behaviorists would have their own stress, biological psychologists their own cognitive psychologists. So actually it is not something which is easily defined. When you bring this jumble, this sort of mixture, to try to Islamize it, then things become even more difficult. So, to shorten the whole issue, we should say that a worldview, in order to be established, needs heroes. It needs protagonists. And in the Western world, there are such heroes who took the place of prophets in traditional religions. Darwin, Freud, and in philosophy, Bertrand Russell, people like this. These are the founders of the new religion. And when you say, I am religious, I follow this religion strictly, to somebody whose religion is irreligiousness, would look at you as a kafir. And I think many Muslims and many religious people are not aware of this. So in this connection, I just want to go to our own condition. I'm cutting a lot of material which I could have said, because I can't put all that in these few minutes. Worldviews, when they change, the ideology will automatically change, and the ethics will change. What is happening to us? We are now the subjugated group. We are the weaker group. In the past, when Europeans came to conquer our countries, our worldview was shaken. That was like a revolution that changes a worldview. Many of our people lost their belief, some of them became, and this was, there was a great change in our worldview. And accordingly, gradually, also our ethical beliefs and our ethical behavior. But later on, after things settled down, we are now being subjected to a more serious kind of onslaught, ethical onslaught on our religion and worldview. It is more insidious, more gradual. And in this sense, we must see the influence of an aggressor over the aggressed, psychologically and even socially. This has been well explained by the man who has given me his chair. I'm holding his chair, Ibn Khaldun. It is he who first spoke about the influence of the conqueror on the conquered society. Gradually and insidiously, the conquered one, out of his feeling of weakness, begins to submit and to accept gradually the thought of the aggressor. Now this is happening, even in things that are simple, like me now speaking English. When I started to speak English as a child, taught English, I started to speak Arabic like an Englishman. تعال هنا يا زول كلام, as if I thought that to become to speak English, you will have to get into the shoes of an Englishman. There is no learning of a language without the influence of the culture of that language. And insidiously, many people who get into this begin to lose their respect to their own language. And this is indeed beginning to happen today in our culture, in our countries. Another psychological important aspect is that some people will begin to identify with those who are conquering them. Freud, in spite of our differences with him, took this concept of Ibn Khaldun and put it in a beautiful manner. He calls it identification with the aggressor. And this is indeed, we can see it even when there are a number of cases where people have been taken hostages, and then after a few weeks, when they are freed, they begin to identify with the one who took them as hostages of the conqueror. And indeed, when we do that, we enjoy it. We use the videos, the telephones, the iPhone, the iPad. I saw a nice cartoon the other day. One child saying, "I have an iPhone." His sister said, "I have an iPad." And another one said, "I have an I something." Then the father looks very angry sitting, "I pay. I pay. This is I paid, then I pay." So enjoying these artifacts would gradually soften the resistance. And this is a very interesting phenomenon in which people, the conquered, after seeing the advanced aspect of the conqueror and enjoy their artifacts, will gradually lessen the resistance. They will accept ideas that their forefathers fought to preserve it. They died in the cause of their preservation. This, to me, I call this phenomenon, I have a term that I have used in one of my books. I call it cultural reciprocal inhibition. Reciprocal inhibition is a term invented by Wolpe in describing his systematic desensitization. That has two factors. You must do something to make the person relax and have no internal resistance, and then you introduce the thing which you want to change gradually. A person who is afraid of heights, first you make him relax. He relaxes, you give him Valium to make him more relaxed maybe, and then you don't just take him to the 30th floor and tell him look down. No, you take him to the first floor and from the balcony look down, relax, then the second one, and gradually. This phenomenon is exactly happening, can happen to a nation. As we enjoy these artifacts and advanced technology, like a hypnotized patient, we gradually also accept the ethical standard. The third aspect that I spoke about is this phenomenon of the media, the explosion of the media, the internet, and here I think even the wise Western people are now really wondering what to do. For example, this aspect of pornography. Look at this Mohler I got it from the internet, Albert Mohler. The moral effects of these are his words. The moral effects of pornography are by now well attested. The scourge of pornography has brought ruin and harm into the lives of millions of our friends and neighbors, destroying marriages, distorting sexuality, and poisoning minds. Among males, exposure to pornography is associated with addictive behavior traced to the release of chemicals in the brain, stimulating arousal and excitement. More recently, research has emerged that points to another effect of pornography exposure. It changes, it changes the worldview of the viewer. It changes his worldview. I think that today we are having a serious onslaught, and we have to think what to do about it. How can we preserve our ethical views in the face of this onslaught? All of this to me is less important than the greatest threat to our worldview that comes from the social sciences. The social sciences taught to our young people in our universities around the Islamic world carries with it a change in the worldview of the young people of the various countries. They influence, particularly, psychology is the greatest, the most powerful in this respect, because it speaks about the nature of man, and from the nature of man how to change his behavior, and this will be copied in economics, it will be copied in sociology, it will be copied in other aspects. Because psychology is a hybrid, one leg on the social sciences and the other leg on the biological and physical sciences. Now Watson, the father of behaviorism, when he speaks about man, listen to what he says. This is actually his words from his book, Behaviorism. We believe that man is an animal different from other animals only in the types of behavior he displays. Human beings do not want to class themselves with other animals. They are willing to admit that they are animals, but between two inverted commas, but something else in addition. He goes on to say, it is the something else that causes the trouble. In this something else is bound up everything that is classed as religion, the hereafter, morals, love of children, parents, country, and the like. Then he goes on to advise young psychologists. He says, these are his actual words, the raw fact that you, as a psychologist, if you are to remain scientific, must describe the behavior of man in no other terms than those you would use in describing the behavior of the ox you slaughter. Now this comes, it is from Darwin, this is the application of Darwin in the field of psychology. Listen to Freud, who is considered the greatest founder of modern secular humanism after the influence of Darwin. He says, where questions of religion are concerned, people are guilty of every possible sort of dishonesty and intellectual cheating. Philosophers stretch the meaning of words until they retain scarcely anything of their original sense. They give the name of God to some vague abstraction which they have created for themselves. Having done so, they can pose before all the world as deists, as believers in God, and they can even boast that they have recognized a higher, purer concept of God, notwithstanding that their God is now nothing more than an insubstantiated shadow and no longer the mighty personality of religious doctrine. This is in his book, Future of an Illusion. Now here, I would like to say that these people, that he calls it science. Science of psychoanalysis came to expose the delusions of religion. But actually, neither Freud nor Watson, and this is taught to our students as science, as the science of psychology. But none of them, this is philosophy, this is not science. Neither Freud nor Watson nor Ellis nor any one of these psychologists got into a laboratory, did some experimental and scientific work, and then he came out to tell us that there is no soul in human beings. That sexuality is the main drive that moves men from cradle to grave. That there is no human nature at all, it is only the environment that shapes people. Nobody, these are armchair thinking, this is philosophy. Now, when we come to face these aspects, we need to really think about the influence of, in fact, the Western world, at least from the time of Renaissance and Enlightenment, and when they finished the church, they went to the other extreme. You know, this is in physics, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So when in a society people go to one extreme, to rectify it, they will not come to a good middle ground. They will go to the other extreme. Now we are actually facing this kind of extremism. For example, let us take this issue of sex, which Freud is basing his theory on. During the time of the Greeks, homosexuality with friends, orgies that came in the time of the Romans after that, this was an extreme behavior. Then came Christianity and the pendulum went to the other direction. The best person is the person who does not have sex at all. And this became, particularly in the case of women and men, you should not enjoy sex. Not do it for enjoy. You are forced to do it only for bringing children into the world. This is an extreme approach. And the church became so dominant, so strong, and as Bertrand Russell says, millions, he said millions. I didn't read it anywhere else but in the work of Bertrand Russell. Millions of women have been burned on the stake as witches. They were accused of having sex with Satan, with Iblis. Now this is an extreme form. Then came the modern Western world with its sexual revolution. It is the pendulum went to the other side. To the extent that today, the head of an African state, though we disagree with his policies, Mugabe, he banned homosexuality in his country. The next day he received a letter from 40 or so American senators. You are doing so against human rights and so and so. If you don't change this, the money that we are paying to your country is in danger. This is an extremism. We are now living in an extreme point of view. When I was a student early in the 50s, we used to study in abnormal psychology, homosexuality as an abnormality to be treated. Even in the 60s, when I was training in London in the Middlesex Hospital, I do remember the man who trained me in behavior therapy saying, because at that time the British police will bring those caught in homosexual acts to the hospital to be treated. And he used to say, when is our parliament going to make this okay so we don't have these people? We used to treat them with aversion therapy, with other methods. But then, all of a sudden in the 70s, the homosexual movements in the United States forced the American Psychological Association to consider it as only an alternative to heterosexuality. When psychology goes in with medicine, we are also going to have serious ethical issues. What about homosexuality? What about euthanasia, mercy killing? What about renting uteruses? What about all of these things have come? All of them were only when Christianity was in power. He gave me a ticket already, okay. When Christianity was in power, these were terrible sins, kaba'ir. Now it is accepted, no guilt. And accordingly, we need to know that we are facing a position, a culture which is going in an anti because of what the church did and because the pendulum is on this side. This is not a normal situation. And indeed, yesterday, while listening to a number of our distinguished speakers, I did feel this aspect in some of the words that were said. And I think now that we should try to do something about it. I don't have the answers, but one of the important things is for our people ethically to to believe that whatever they do in terms of stealing, in terms of having sexual relations that are not allowed, we should inculcate into them that Allah is most forgiving. They should not develop this aspect of guilt that they are no more wanted, and this will make them go into even more. They may even go to adopt philosophies that are against their own religion and against their own beliefs, and this is more dangerous. A young man can become a homosexual, can do this, can do that, but there is a time when he says, Astaghfirullah, and Allah will forgive all sins. Just by saying, please forgive me, Allah, it will be forgiven. But if he begins to believe that sexuality is something which has nothing to do with religion or to accept a point of view, this is more serious. This will lead him to what we call disbelief. If you believe, read something as we read in psychology, that homosexuality is inherited, it's genetic. There is no evidence, by the way, no evidence whatsoever. Psychologists, biological psychologists did their very best to look in genes, to look in hormones, to look in this, to find the way they could not find. One of them even went to dissect bodies of people who died homosexuals. So I think that it is important to have this. Let me just finish very quickly. The other important thing is to have young people will not listen to us as old people. They will look and listen to charismatic people of their own age. We need groups, we need societies that do not necessarily become political and take people into, just to keep our societies that have charismatic leaders who only concentrate in keeping our akhlaq and developing it. And then lastly, I think we need to have a better media. When I've been working in campaigns fighting AIDS, and then I look when I see in the television the program against AIDS. It is an old sheikh, he comes, this so and so, don't use the condom, so on. Then it's really, many young people will just turn the television to another station. But when the West want to give the message of homosexuality, they brought Tom Hanks in a film which was an excellent film. I have seen the film. And when his homosexual companion came, they don't show it, but it was obvious. And then he was expelled from his job because he has AIDS. Then he comes to the court, and while the lawyer, they chose a very ugly American actor who's really can take the role of the harsh person. And when he was saying, the Bible says so and so, at that time Tom Hanks faints and falls in the court. And then people began to, it's taken up. This is a beautiful film that gives a good message to them. But when it comes to us, what do we have in order to bring our akhlaq? It's good now we are seeing films or TV shows like Omar, and it's beautiful. But we need something related to our modern life. Stories, actors, directors, to bring us something that can keep our young people to their religion and their morality. Thank you very much.
شكرا جزيلا لأستاذنا الكريم الدكتور.
Thank you indeed, Dr. Malik Badri. And I hope he will stay at the podium to respond to the questions. Today we need to be strict with the time because the schedule, as we see, is tight, and the interpreters have other commitments, so they are going to have to leave as we have promised them to. Nobody has any comments or questions? Ustad Suhail?
Assalamu alaikum.
She's speaking in English.
You will have to speak loudly.
Yes.
I have a problem with my,
Okay.
yeah.
My voice is loud, yeah. Actually, what I see on the scene, we have unidentified multi-world view because we don't know what's going to emerge on the scene because we have multicultures due to technological communication, to advanced technological communication. So we have a number of groups actually. And in my opinion, the most influential ones will be those who can enforce themselves with maximum exposure on media and technological devices. That's why, because I see the scene is not so pessimistic. I'm optimistic actually, because we have a bit of everything. But it is unknown yet who is going to conquer, who is going to prevail. Because now there is disturbance, there is a mix of everything, there's no equilibrium. Things are mixed due to the high growth in knowledge also, and high growth in tendencies. We have multiple tendencies among people and factions. So what's in your view the future scene? How would it look like? Who's going to conquer? Because I see other trends coming from China, from Japan. Everybody seems to be strong these days. Even Muslims in these areas, we have highly intellectual people, highly young people who converge in groups on social media and in social gatherings and so on. They have various views, diverse views. So what's on the scene? What's going on? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, what is your country? I'm very curious to know.
Sorry?
Your country, what is there?
I am Qatari.
Huh?
I'm Qatari.
From Qatar.
Qatari?
Yes, I'm Qatari. Originally
Oh,
from
Qatar.
Jordan.
I see.
Originally from Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I think that there is a term which is used, al-baqa lil-aslah. I think Al-Quran says, أما ما ينفع الناس أما الزبد فيذهب جفاء وأما ما ينفع الناس فيمكث في الأرض. I think we should not be in a hurry to change. Now I'm not talking as a psychologist. I'm talking as a Muslim, because the Quran says لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. It is coming. It is coming whether we like it or not, whether those who are secular want it or not. It is coming. But it will take time. I think that we should not be too worried about what is happening. A number of...
السؤال الثاني سائل ثاني before we
قطعتني يا أخي قطعة شديدة. أيوة طيب.
You have interrupted me so abruptly. I apologize because we only have 2 minutes left. He's speaking in English.
And just only, actually, I have a concern. I didn't expect from you to give me the answer now, but I need from you to give us a guidelines, as you are a psychologist. The identity. The identity for us as a Muslim in the West, and identity as a Muslim in the East. Because I'm living in the West for the last 20 years. And I see actually the new generation coming, they lost their identity as a Muslim, they lost as an identity as an Arabic, they lost their identity, they diluted in the community, and they started to be westernized. But to be honest, after the 20 years I living there, I see the West is never going to accept us as one of them. They accept us if we keep our identity, if we keep ourselves as something different. I know we're living in the West and we need to be not us, not them. Yes, we all living together, but living together with a common goods. But if there is something contradictions to our belief, to our ethics as identity, we need to keep our identity, and we'd like to show them we are very proud of our ethics and our Islamic.
شكرا جزيلا. دكتور طارق.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. جزاك الله عن هذه المحاضرة.
In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, may Allah bless you for your presentation.
When it comes to psychology, is from an Islamic perspective, very often when we look at the theories that are coming from the West, we are very critical on many points that are lacking. You were talking about Freud, but Freud himself was criticized in the West, and there are many psychologists and many theories. And we keep on talking about the critical things that we can see because they are not having a comprehensive way of dealing with our identity, as it was said and what you were saying. Now, I read a book that you wrote a few years ago about on contemplation, which for me was very important because it was an Islamic perspective on the way we have to look at nature and we have to look at ourselves. What is missing today is not for us to be critical of the Western way of dealing with psychology, but what is the Islamic way, or what can we promote as Muslims? Why am I saying this? Because I'm sorry to say that Muslims are not taking psychology seriously, while when we look at the communities and we look at the Muslim majority countries, we have lots of psychological problems. Deep psychological problems that we don't know how to deal with them. So my question is, what is our contribution? Are we talking about an Islamic psychology, or are we talking about an Islamic contribution? And this is why I want you to start responding, knowing that this question will come to the others after you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Please give me a little bit of time. Huh?
How much
Just
time
a
you
bit,
want,
yeah.
Doctor? I'm going to bargain with you.
Because now these are two questions. And I think I want to combine the two questions into one, the issue of identity. I have a sentence which I repeat quite a lot. This sentence says that if Muslim psychologists knew the contributions of early Muslim scholars, they would have been the first to come up with the most modern methods of treatment today. They would have come up with cognitive behavior therapy. They would have come up even with the third wave of cognitive behavior therapy, which is coming back to contemplation, mindfulness, and all this. Already this had been done. But unfortunately, if the Western world, I don't want all the time to criticize the West, but the Westerners actually borrow, they take their planes all the way from London and New York, all the way to the Far East, to Buddhism, to, we are nearer. They should have a stopover in our countries, and they would have found these things earlier. But I give them full excuse for that. But we, the Muslims, have no excuse. I have just now, a book has been published for me in London, translation of the work of Abu Zayd al-Balkhi. He lived 12 centuries ago, an Iranian, and he spoke about astounding things. When I first saw the manuscript, I didn't believe my eyes. He's the first person to differentiate between psychoses and neuroses, psychological disorders and mental disorders. He was the first to talk in detail about what he calls ishtibak, between the psyche and the soma, the psychosomatic disorders. He was the first to use in detail cognitive behavior therapy. What Wolpe said, what Ellis said. What I did in this translation of his manuscript, I bring in my footnotes what Ellis said, and then I bring what he said. No difference. So, in fact, for 50 years, Arab and Muslim psychologists were talking about the id, the sexuality, this, as if we are like parrots, like monkeys, imitating. And we have al-himar yahmilu asfara. We have the asfar there of our. Now, the Western world is coming back to mindfulness, is coming back to positive psychology, helping behavior and how it makes a person better. Now they are coming back to the use of contemplation in improving the health of people. When I read the work of this great scholar who wrote on contemplation, and he describes it, you close your eyes, you relax, you repeat something from your own belief, repeat it. Then he gave an example to the Muslims. Use the word ahadun, 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 which Bilal used to use. When she says this, I remember my father, the way he used to after prayer, to go down, sit like this, the way, take out his tasbih, and then subhanallah, subhanallah, repeating it. It is the same thing. But they benefited from it, but without actually talking about psychology or other aspects. Now I really feel sad when I hear a modern Muslim psychologist talking about positive psychology, talking about happiness, because it is just beginning to happen today in the Western world. But Al-Ghazali in Ihya Ulumuddin spoke about it in detail. So we need to have
شكرا جزيلا لبروفيسور مالك بدري
and thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome. ولدينا راحة لمدة 10 دقائق.
We will take a break for 10 minutes to come back for the next session. Thank you.